Week 4, yes, time's flying. So I reckon from what I've seen, most people that submitted their drawings and those that had submitted before Tuesday that I marked and gave feedback to, the rest I'll get done today, so you get your feedback. Was excellent, so right on track, if not ahead of schedule. So what we'll do today is really start to work on the full set. So save a copy of your. How are you?
Good.
Work on like save a copy now called preliminary drawings in a preliminary folder, and then do a save as and save it as working drawings. So we've got those 2 copies. Remember to change your options so your backups aren't going to be 20, make it down to 2. If you use the template, it's probably already got that anyway. Otherwise, you'll end up with like 20 copies in your folders. So that way, then we can just keep working towards the final submission, being what we need to put on for final council submission, I suppose, for this project. So done the site plan. We could probably put a few more things on the site plan now. So if we think about the site plan, what other things could we add to the site plan? We've done a boundary and some setbacks and the driveway, and we've located the house. What's sort of probably the only other thing we need to show on that site plan?
Would be if you had to like cut and fill.
Yeah, we don't have cut and fill, but yeah, you would show that for the construction stuff. Yeah,
Fences.
definitely. If there's any large fences or anything that's it needs permission. Services. So we want to show if there's any location of Stobie poles on the street, which there isn't there, so it'll be under, the power will be coming under anyway. And we need to show the rainwater tank location, size of the tank, and also how that tank's being fed. So from the downpipe, some dashed lines showing which downpipes are going to the tank, and then if some are coming around and going up into the tank, or if they're going to go straight through gravity fed, and then what's happening with the overflow. So once it's full, what's happening with it? So usually a dashed line showing that it's going out to the street water table, and a note saying that overflow to street water table. Okay, so this is quite a simple project, and that's what we do. It's not a huge catchment area, it's not a huge block or anything like that. When we get to the next project, there's obviously some slightly different requirements because it's a big development. We're doing part of that, but for this one, that's really all you need to show. That's council would be quite happy with that. So that's all we need to add to the site plan. When we get to the elevations, you've pretty well done them. We probably just want to check through the checklist and see what other sort of notes we might want to add onto the elevations, and we probably need to think about incorporating how the floor structure looks, so we can import the floor. Russell hasn't emailed it to me yet, but I'll make sure I get it off him in the next couple of hours so that you can just put that in at the end. And dragging down that cladding so that it's hiding the structure under. And we probably at this stage actually draw a couple of simple stairs and the landings, if you haven't done that already. Don't need to with planning because they don't need to see the stair structure, but it'll just show that there's a couple of stairs at the right goings and rises, etc., and that the owner's going to do it. So council may ask what the stair structure is going to be. So if you include a simple stair drawing there with a landing next to those 3 doors, there's sort of 3 areas. Front door, I think laundry, and then the other sliding door on the other side. A few more dimensions on the floor plan. And also now we've got to start thinking again, like Leanne said, about services. So if we think about the floor plan, what other sorts of services, even though we're not doing the electrical plan, what things do we need to show so that we know, or some of the other consultants, i.e. plumbers, electricians, sort of start to think about what they might need to do for this job.
The hot water services? Or
Yep, hot water service, yep. Meter box, yep. Smoke detectors, excellent, yep. What else? Sorry? PowerPoints, no, they'll be part of the electrical, which we're not doing, so we don't need the PowerPoints at this stage. But what about actually locating the kitchen and showing that if there's going to be a dishwasher, if there's going to be a sink on the kitchen, which side of the kitchen sink's going to be. So as soon as we put like an island bench, or in the case of this one, we've got this sort of breakfast bar. If we show that there's a dishwasher provision like that, straight away that says we need water and power there. Okay. Not so bad with a transportable because there's access underneath, but think about if you were doing this on a slab, it's one of the first things that has to be done before the slab gets poured, because they can't straight away put waste water and power coming through the slab when it's already finished. All right, so it's pretty important to make sure that's in the right spot and show that. So there's three things happening there: water going in, water going out, and then power. And by showing that provision for the dishwasher, it says that. Okay. Sink on this side, so again, water going in, hot and cold water, plus power. Over this side, sorry, not power, waste there. And this side we've got possibly power, possibly gas, and then possibly water, depending on what we want to do. So if you had a fridge that was plumbed, you would probably be putting that through at this stage, like actually showing that there's a tap at the back of the fridge for plumbing, and power there as well. So that's why I suppose a lot of people think, oh, I don't really need to do the kitchen, that'll come in later. Well, they need to know things before. I mean, someone might not be getting their kitchen actually manufactured. They might say, I'm going to go to IKEA and get my kitchen and do it at a different price, leave it out of the contract. But at this stage, we still need to know, because there's no way that IKEA could come in and set up a kitchen and not have the services and the waste and the power in the right spot, because it just costs way too much to do it again. So we really almost got to establish the kitchen design and where things are going to be. So that's why at this point it's quite important to get that right.
Gas pipes laid in the slab as well?
Sorry?
Gas pipes, are they laid in the slab?
The gas will come through the wall framing, so we need to sort of allow for where which side might be better to have the gas on, and that's sometimes to do with how big the house is. There might have to be a secondary hot water system. Hot water, if you've got an instantaneous hot water that's fed to gas, that then is going to go to the kitchen and the bathroom, and then you start thinking about, okay, that's got gas, now I need the gas through there, how far the pipe's going. So if you can minimise pipe runs when you start to think about your designs, then it's obviously better and a bit cheaper to do all those sorts of things. This could be gas cooktop, but it might have an electric ignition, so to start an electric oven underneath, so then there's power. Range should power as well, and if it might be induction, it might be all electric, so those sorts of things are automatically, I suppose, started to be thought about and allowed for. Now, in terms of this kitchen bar, just so everyone's aware at this stage, this sort of setup is pretty normal to sort of show a kitchen. You can just do this in detail lines, because we're not going to show it in 3D, so you don't have to start sort of thinking about building all the families and that. This is just a little family, but this is all detail lines, and this is probably a family here and here. But what does that dash line indicate? Does anyone know what that dash line indicates there? Yeah, so the cabinet work, where that comes to, and how far the kitchen bench or island is hanging over. So there's like a little cantilevered bench. So just so you sort of start to think about that design, usually about 900 is about the maximum you're going to get. You can sometimes push it to 1 metre, but if you try to stay into about 900, you'll know that you'll be right for most materials. So I'm talking about laminate. So the board width is okay, but it's the actual laminate. You don't want to have too many joins. So you can get 1.1 pieces from some manufacturers, but most of them work just as a metre. So 900 is good. Stone, anything over 1 metre wide is hard to get the length right. So with a stone bench top, any more than 3 metre length requires a join. So in something like this, if this was stone, this would be okay for 1 length, but it would have a join along here. So you'd get that 1 length, and then you'd have to think about how they were going to do this bit, whether it's there up to there, you may get that, and another join, and then you'd have another piece there. So you've got to sort of think about that. And if a client's ever going more than 3 metres and they want stone, I would put a note on to say that there'll be a join so they don't get any nasty surprises. And where the join is going to be up to the stonemason. So it just depends on the availability, what's happening with the other shape and those sorts of things.
How obvious is the joint in a stone bench?
Depends what you're using, what colours and mixes and that sort of thing. If it's like a Caesar stone and it's quite a plain sort of colour, the joint isn't that obvious. Like they polish it out quite well, but you'll still see it. You can still pick up where it is. And that's why the stonemason will try to sort of put it either close to a sink, like somewhere like that.
Yep.
But if it's just one long island bench and you're going like 3.2 metres, somewhere there'll be a line. So if there's a sink there, they'll probably try to use the edge of that sink to sort of put it, depending on. But if it's like a marble finish, where that join is, the actual seam might not be obvious, but the pattern mix is very hard to match. So that's what you've got to be careful of. So, and that's why when you start doing benches that are more than 3 metres long, it can get expensive because all of a sudden people are trying to match stone, which takes time and sorting and so the other thing about this little overhang is when we're talking about stone and laminate bench tops on a MDF preform board, 300 is about your limit for your cantilevered overhang there. Okay, so you can go less, but you wouldn't want to go more than 300 as an overhang. So as I suppose designers, we've sort of got to know those things in the back of our head when we start designing, because you don't want to sort of put something there and say, oh, we have a 500 overhang, and all of a sudden it comes back and says we can't do 500, So 300 is about your limit there. So the normal sort of bench width is 600 all the way around, and that really matches the cabinetry underneath, the depth of your drawers and your shelving and that sort of thing. And that's why that fits quite nicely with a 900 bench. You've got your 600 supporting underneath, and then you've got your 300 overhang. Okay, so that's usually how you end up with that 900 sort of size. Plus it's just under that metre, which is material widths. So that would be important to sort of get that right, and then putting some dimensions internally, like that, so we can actually see what the sizes are. Making sure that if the client's sort of happy with an 850 width for their fridge, means that it's not going to be a massive family fridge. Most fridge spaces these days would probably be 1 metre to fit a decent family fridge in. 900 is getting towards your slightly bigger looking fridges, but not your big family ones. Okay, so if you only allow 900, you have to remember the doors, depending on if they 2 doors or 1, it is quite a thick door that has to actually come around as well, so that'll take up a little bit of that space. So and just check fridge sizes, like a lot of them are 898 mil and some are 903 mil. So if you're allowed 900, then it pushes everyone back to a slightly limited selection. If you allow 1 metre, you're pretty well going to fit most sort of fridges in. But some can be bigger than that. Some can be 1200, some can be 1500. So you really got to check that with the client as well, because otherwise, if your cabinet work starts happening and someone's got to buy a smaller fridge, that's not going to be a fun exercise for them. I've got a new house, but I've got to downsize my fridge. Okay.
I don't know why they don't just make metre standard, because for the long-term use of the home, it just makes sense.
Yeah. Most houses these days have sort of got about 900 metre, 900 to a metre. 900 I've found, I've lived in a lot of houses about what you get. And I've had to downsize fridges to fit into certain houses and that sort of stuff. I've had quite an array of different size fridges in my life.
Our fridge is in the dining room because it doesn't fit.
Yeah, I've had that
The
before
kitchen
too.
is 1960, so the
Yeah,
fridge space is tiny.
yeah. I had a rented house once when I first moved to Adelaide. Actually, that reminded me, and it was a really new kitchen in an old Art Deco sort of house. But they'd done up the kitchen, but they'd only allowed, I think it was like an 800 fridge space, and my fridge didn't fit in there, and so it was in the dining room. Yeah, next to the. It's weird. And we made that the coffee machine space. Like, it was just like, right, that worked. So just things like that to think about, and putting your dimensions in there so people sort of are aware of what sizes they're getting. Access hatch, so somewhere that we can access the roof. That's that. Smoke alarms, you can see there's the rule around smoke alarms, which is one of the compliance things that you need to have a look at, is that there needs to be hardwired interlinked smoke alarms, and have to be outside the entrance to bedrooms. So if there's a hallway going down to 3 bedrooms, you could have it at the start of that hallway. That would service those 3 bedrooms. But in the case of this one, there's a bedroom up here and there's bedroom here. So we need to obviously have 2 different smoke alarms happening. And you want to sort of...
have a smoke alarm in the bedrooms? Or?
You can, yeah. So the minimum requirement is 1 to service the outside as smoke comes towards the bedroom. If you have a look at the NCC, that'll explain it in good detail. And also the MFS, Metropolitan Fire Services website, has a good diagram about how to locate, but that's the minimum requirement. There's no, and people often say to me, well, if it's law and you have to have it fitted by an electrician, etc., hardwired, why do they sell them in Bunnings? Well, you can buy extra ones. So the minimum is that. What the Metropolitan Fire Service recommend is, if you sleep with your bedroom doors closed, you should have a smoke alarm in the bedroom. Okay, and so what that covers you for is you don't hear the smoke outside, but if you've got heating or heater or something in your bedroom, and that's what starts the fire, the smoke won't get you before that alarm, because if it has to try to get out of your door to get the alarm off and you're asleep, you're probably going to be in some trouble before that goes off. Especially when you've got kids that have heaters and things in their rooms, like small infants. People often decide to put a heater in their room to keep the baby warm so it doesn't wake up through the night or whatever. Make sure there's, that sort of stuff happening there. The other thing about the bathroom, we've talked about the door, and everyone's sort of started to think about getting that right, but which side is your shower and tap going to work from? So that's probably a good thing to start thinking about for this end of the document as well. So you could just put a little cross there to show the tap, etc. What sort of waste you're going to have, whether it's a grate or is it smart tile or it's an integrated shower pan that's going to be brought in. Same with the bath. What end is the waste going to be at? Whereabouts is the tap work going to be? Making sure that we've got the right notes on our windows for the bathroom, so obscure for privacy reasons, and also toughened or safety glass. So if anyone's standing in the bath and tries to open the window and falls, they're not going to actually get hurt if they break the glass. Okay. So usually just a note on those windows in the elevation that says obscure obscure safety glass to wet area windows. Okay. So you can see on this one the stairs, like I mentioned before, so up to the veranda, couple here, and just stairs by owner. So I just drew a little landing there, using just a generic floor thickness, so you don't have to show any detail, and then just popped a little stair that ran up 3. Okay. If you have any problems with that, I can show you how to do it. You can see the downpipes and are located on this one as well. So what are the rules about downpipes? Whereabouts should we start to locate the downpipes? Anyone know?
That there's a maximum span or spacing between
Maximum
them.
distance between downpipes? What is it? Do you know, Pauline?
9 metres.
12 metres, yeah. So no more than 12 metres between each downpipe, actually looking in plan view. Council's pretty hot on that. So I've had cases where things have come back from council and they say, can you check these downpipes? As you know, the spacing of 12 metres has been exceeded, and I've looked and it's been like 12.01. You know, it's so minuscule because they use a measurement on their PDF and it gives them a pretty accurate measurement. And you'd be like, well, it's okay. So at least you can tell them that sort of thing. But obviously, if you go over that like too much, you know, if it's 12.5 metres, you know, you have to drag it back and then you've got to measure your next one. Now, a good way to check those once you put them in, and I don't know whether you know about this one in Revit, this little measurement icon up here is really handy because it can actually do a continuing chain quick dimension around corners. So when you click that little down button, it says measure between 2 reference points or along an element. So if we do this first one, but then you tick chain. So if you tick, mine says chair, I don't know why mine always says chair on this one, but it's chain. If you tick chain, so I needed to measure from this downpipe round to this one, because this one's down the corner, yeah. So I'd measure from, say, the centre of that downpipe. If I come out and click, you can see the total length up there being 184.5, but as I start to move down this way, it continues. So it hasn't actually, so the first click is just to bend it around the corner, but it's continuing from the original spot. It's not starting again. And so I can get to that one and I can say, well, I'm under that one, that's fine. And then so if I want to do my next one, I just hit escape. So that little tool's quite good, that chain. So from that one along to this one, 10 metres, we're okay. All right. So that's
that will still apply if it's on a separate roof, like the skilling separate to the main roof.
Yes. Well, yeah, that one's never going to be over more than 12 metres, but I just wanted to show you how to do round the corner. Yeah. So it's really going to be that length and that length, but this building's, luckily it's fine, so it'll be okay. And the other thing to think about with downpipes is that the 12 metre rule is probably quite good. It's already stretching it. If you sort of have a length of wall that you think I'd only have to have one, like in this case there's 10 metre length, you could actually get away with just one on each side. If you only had one on each side, what's going to happen if one blocks? You know, you've only got one block, so then it's going to go over, it's going to start coming in the eaves lining, it's going to be moisture problems, etc. So it doesn't cost much in the build to put a couple of extra intermediate ones in. So in this case, we got 2 extra ones, essentially. We could take 2 away and it would still get through council, but for longevity, it's not that much more expensive in terms of what it could cost if one block. Tennis balls, you know, stuff like that go into downpipes are a good blocker, you know, so all of a sudden you've lost one. If it's the only one, fills up and, you know, it's going to be hard. So so I always tend to think when I'm measuring along, if I'm close to 12, I might put one in the middle of that run anyway, because, I mean, some people sort of think, oh, I don't like the look of downpipe. It's only really if it's on the front facade around some sort of architectural feature that it takes away. Down the side of your houses, how often do you notice your downpipes? You know, they're painted the same colour. You don't really notice unless you're trying to carry big pieces of furniture down the side, but they disappear anyway, so it's better to have a few extras. So the access panel I talked about, didn't I? So PA in this case, what does it stand for? Personal access, yeah, person access instead of, used to be manhole. Look how many women are in the room now, you know, like they're on the other way, isn't it?
I'd be worried if I was a man.
Yeah, all good.
Some of them have not got much room to get in there anyway.
So now when you locate those, you try to put in a place that's out of the way, and always think about safety of the person and the ladder that's going up there as well. So I try not to locate them in sort of hallways if I can, because as soon as there's a ladder up in a hallway, if someone has to get up there and work, it's going to be a access egress problem for that period of time. You know, if someone has to go, excuse me, I've got to get past, I've got to take the kids to school, or someone's up there, service, you know, guy, oh, we'll just move it out the way, and then they go, and then someone's up there and they can't reach the ladder, those sorts of things. Yeah, exactly. So when you think about it, it's easy enough to locate it, you know, somewhere out of the way. Sometimes if you've got a garage that's part of the house, you might put it up in the corner of the garage, but don't put it near the front garage door, you know, those sorts of things. So just think about that. Show your roof outline if you haven't done so already. So if you have any problems with that, I can help you as well, getting your underlay right. The other thing that this one's got is where it says the downpipe. Remember the tag that I showed you last week, the multi-category tag that we set up to do the, did we do it for the windows? Yep. That will now work for your downpipes. It'll work for any family that's in your project now. So if I wanted to make this one here, see how it's already saying DP? So I can just take that leader away, hover over there, and then there's my DP. Okay. So how that works quite well is I can do that one, I can do that one, and then I can just sort of select that one and that one, and if I went to move them into the right spot, I can move them together. And on my elevation, where I've got some downpipes, the same thing can apply. So I can actually quickly go in and say, I want to, it's already done there, but do 2 downpipes. Okay. So the more multi-category tagging you use now, it's going to be just much easier because you set it up once, you give it that DP. When the first one you'll do, it'll have a question mark, put it in DP. Every downpipe now has that. You don't have to keep going annotation, because what will happen, why I use that, is if things come back from council and all of a sudden they say you need to add another downpipe and then you move one, well, the text won't move with it if it's not associated with it, or you might actually have some spelling mistakes. So at least that way it's all set up and it's really quick. You can just click on things. So use that for lots of your objects. The same with if you've got some meter boxes, you can tag those as well. Use the multi-category tag. So any family can be tagged with that. So you can see now it's those windows are tagging. There's the gas, there's the meter box. Okay. Dimensions, so make sure now with our floor plan that we're going to put every dimension that we require for someone to set this building out and build it on there. And I suppose just thinking about dimensions, is everyone pretty knowledgeable or have a good understanding of how to set the dimensions out?
I remember Russell talked about how far the dimension lines have to be, but I can't remember.
Yeah, the spacing really, I suppose, is the most important thing about the spacing is that these extension lines don't touch the building. Okay, so they can be quite close, but as long as they don't touch the building, so we can push the dimensions a bit closer. But you can see with this drawing, none of these section markers and tags go across the dimensions. So that's the important thing to remember. So if we've got some section markers that we're going to start showing now, you wouldn't have the section marker through like that. So you start with all these sorts of things closest to the building as you can get them, and then your dimensions will come in again as close as possible, depending on your page size. This is a small building, so it's relatively easy, but when we get to the bigger house and you get some bigger ones, and I brought some examples in to show you, you can have a look, flick through today, you really start to struggle to fit dimensions on the page, you know. So there's a floor plan with some dimensions, and you can see how close they are to getting to the border. So it's all about trying to sort of squash them up with bearing in mind those rules. They're not touching the building where you can avoid it, those sorts of things. But as far as what we're dimensioning and the order of how they're set out, the only difference is this string of dimensions here is actually showing the window and door, so that all the openings set up. Now this one can be either the first row that we see like this, or the second last row. Okay, so that in offices I've worked in, there's two different methods, and that's pretty common around. So if we ignore the window opening one for a minute, the rest of them are starting internally and working out. So these ones are referencing internal parts here, this one's referencing these room widths here, and then the next one is overall. So this one here could be thought of as the next step out from the rooms, and then there, and then the overall. Okay, but why some companies like to put that close is because that is often when they're first setting out the building, they're using the overall, but how they're locating all their frame widths and openings is using those window and door openings. So when they're setting out the frames and making those frames, they make them on the ground, and they're using those dimensions. So this is right, how far between the end of this wall is my door openings, they're putting the lintels in, etc., and then they're standing the frames up. So that's one of the ones that happens first. So it doesn't really matter if whether you have that as your first one, or if you have it as your sort of one just before, at the end, just before the overall. Okay, but if you bear in mind, we're working, this side is working from the middle and out. So if you think about this line being, we've drawn a line through here somewhere, and we're picking up the width of the toilet, the width of this vanity area, and the width of this cupboard. The next one row is this laundry, because we've got different walls in there, so it's moved out a bit. And the next one is then these rooms. Okay, so the reason that there's not an extension on here is because this room is done here. Okay, it's the same room in this case, but if there was a wall that came through there, one of these might extend through there. Okay, like this one has. This is picking up on the very front openings with the posts done quite close, and then the windows. But then this row, we take these two out of the equation for a second. Let's move those out of the way so you can see. So this one here, we're picking up on the width in this area here, the bathroom, picking up through the distance between those two walls there, and then the length between that wall, and then the next one's this room and this room. There it is there. So yeah, just start at the middle and just start setting them back. Dimensioning might take you, even for a simple building like this, an hour or two. Okay, that's totally normal. When I've worked on these sorts of jobs, I think I'm nearly finished the job. I should have it finished today, and it might be 10 o'clock in the morning, and I'll still be doing those dimensions at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. because I'm checking things as I'm going, and I go, oh, that dimension, I need to move a wall. So it's the sort of final check of all your things. So it doesn't mean you just go click, 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 click. Everything's got to be accurate, and then you're adding them up and making sure they're right, and you're checking them, and then you go, no, that's wrong, I'm going to pull that one down to that string. So dimensioning is a big job, and it's a really important job, so don't just rush over and go quick, 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 quick. Take your time with your dimensions and get them right, okay? It'll take you longer because you're just learning them, so don't worry about that. That's the hard part of the point of being here, okay? So there's a real art to it. Over dimensioning, so putting things, you know, 5 or 6 times on the same end. So if we've got a room and then we've got another room that's exact, another room that's exact, sometimes you can't avoid it, other times you can. So that's part of learning that art. Do I need to add that one in here? Is it better to leave that one off so they're not so cluttered? Those sorts of things. And the other thing that you can do if you're, say with things like this, when you start getting these sorts of ones that are really, what's this looking at, you could actually write a bit of a description in here so that someone knows exactly what that is doing. So if we wrote WC in there, straight away someone knows that's what that's width is. Okay, so where you start to get ones that are a little bit, oh, what, you know, what could that be mistaken for? Put some little notes in there. Okay, so there might be one here, like this one. I might write on that one pantry or something like that. Is that what it was? Pantry. Oh, is that the window opening, or is that pantry there? Oh yeah, that's the window. Yeah, sorry, that's the window. Where's the pantry one? Next row. But you get the gist. And if you need to write them again, you can do a Control C and see, I don't think that pantry is dimensioned on that side or that side, so that's been missed on these dimensions. So that's in a classic example. You think you got them, oh, now I need to find which string I'm going to put that in. Okay. Some internal notes, like the openings here, that should be probably around the other way. We'll do the height first. That could be a multi-category tag though. You can tag that opening if you've used a wall opening. Yeah, things like that. Don't have to worry about getting this area calculation tag right. That's just an additional tag that Russell made up. Just use your normal meter square ones, that's fine, because we only need the meter square because the 3192900 is a dimension that's going to be out here anyway. So the 2900 is there. So without that, someone can pick up, there's my bedroom too. And so if you've got lots of bedrooms after each other again, that would be a classic one to write below it, bed 2. So someone looking at these plans, clients signing them off can straight away say, oh, how big's bed 2? Oh, only 2.9. Let's go and measure our current bedroom. Is that going to be different? Is that going to be bigger, smaller? Is that bed going to fit in? You know, those sorts of things. So, sound all right? So really that's where we're at today. It's really continuing now. It's getting that more detail on your drawings. Shouldn't be too daunting. It's just we got to do some drawing now. Like you did last week. You did an excellent week last week. And I must say, you guys in this class this year, this semester, have been the best at keeping up with the program that I've had for the last couple of semesters. So you're doing really, really well. Really pleased with how everything's going. So So we're really on track. So if you can keep that momentum going, it's excellent. Any other questions?
With the notations, I remember seeing it in the Australian Standard before, but I looked for it the other day and I couldn't find it. The actual like font size.
Oh yeah, that's a good point, Pauline. So, so there is this, in the standard, it does talk about that. So it's a general text size. It's usually 2.5 is called out in the standard, 2.5 millimetre. So when you change your text to 2.5 millimetre, it means whatever scale drawing it's going to go on, when it's printed on the right page, it'll always be 2.5. It's not going to change in scale. However, because I've worked in industry quite a lot, most places use 2 mil. So it used to be you can use 2 mil sparingly to fit some smaller stuff in there. Like if you've written the word pantry and it's not going to fit in that size pantry, you'd make it 2 mil. But most people are going down to 2 mil for most of their notes now. It's because they're putting more detail on and they're not fitting it with the 2.5. Okay.
So like where you've got, you know, bed 1 on there, would that be 2.5?
No, so these, yeah, these ones would be 2.5. So keep those texts a bit bolder, and I'd go down to 2 mil for these sorts of things. Yeah. So it used to also be then a different sort of offices as well. Was like if you were going to use 2 mil, you would write everything in caps, in capitals. So you just have your caps on it. You wouldn't worry about capital, first letter, lowercase. It would just all be capitals. And 2 mil allowed you to do that as well. When people write in 2.5, they tend to just put the first letter as caps and lowercase, or I've seen in a couple of companies just lowercase, no capitals on anything. So there's a few, even though in the Australian Standard it sort of says 2.5, use 2 sparingly, 3.5 or 3 mil and 3.5 could be used for titles, 5 mil for like page, you know, floor plan, those sorts of things on your title block. There's a few things that change. The other thing that people do with the 2 mil or the 2.5 mil is change the width factor, which squashes the text together, and you can change the width factor to like 0.85. So it starts as 1.0, which is the proper for that font. If you change the width factor, it doesn't change the height of the text, it just squashes it a little bit. And these ones are actually changed with the width factor on there, I believe, as well. So if I look at the properties of this is only a 1.5 mil by the looks. 1.5 mil. See, the width factor's been changed to 0.85 as well. So I could probably take that back up to 2 mil with that width factor. Yeah, that's way too big, isn't it? If I change that just to 2, that's it there. So it didn't, you know, you can see it doesn't change it that much. It's quite, I'd probably be preferred to use 2 mil and squash it down with the 0.85. Yeah. Same with the dimension text, you can change that and have it as 2 mil with the width factor down to 0.85 as well. That helps quite a bit with your dimensions because it just means that sometimes these 90s sort of fit in a bit and some of these ones fit into the actual dimension string.
So if you put a note underneath the dimension, does that
yeah, so that size applies to that same dimension, yeah, so you get that word squashed up a bit. And see on this string as well, just another thing about the dimensions, trying to sort them out so that they're not all straight is another, that's why it takes a long time to do your dimensions, because when you first click, you know, this would have been here, these would have been here, like they would have all been, you know, quite close like that. So you can see by just dragging them out and these ones coming out and sitting on the front, it just gives you a bit more space and differentiates between which ones are reading for which areas. And so the first thing that you'll do when you do a string of dimensions is turn the leader off, because otherwise if your leader's on and you start pulling them out, you get these funny little hooks that come out when you print, sort of looking a bit weird. So I tend to do that. So when you're starting going through your drawings now, just start at the whatever. You don't have to start at your site plan or whatever. You just start at wherever you feel comfortable. Just work on a sheet and see if you can get that one pretty good. Work on your next sheet. So it might be your floor plan. Think, right, floor plan. Going to work on that. Get that finished. Right. And when I look at the elevation, start doing that notes on the annotation. Now, when you're doing your annotations on your elevation. If you've got all 4 elevations on one sheet, you don't have to put what the roof is on all 4 elevations. If you've got 2 elevations on one sheet and 2 on another, one of those roofs on each sheet would probably have what the roof sheeting would be. Okay, just so that if someone's looking at a sheet, all the information is on. But if you put 4 times on a sheet that the roof, it's just wasted over annotation. And just remember, I'll stop talking in a minute. Where are you looking to sort of have a look now in terms of checklist? What am I drawing? You've got a couple of things that you can look at. One being the example sheets. Remember, we're not doing the electrical and we're not doing all of the sections. So I would tidy up all your what you've got now and add more dimensions. Then put your sections in later this afternoon and work on your sections as a separate thing, so that you've done the other stuff and then do those. We're going to do one section, remember, just one long section, and then take one detail from that side. Don't do the front balcony. It's too hard at this stage. We just want to keep it really simple. We don't need that one. And the other thing that the 2 other places you can sort of look now is in the assessment portfolio bit, down in, this is all your specifications when you start looking that you can use, but down in here, this is what I'll be looking to check against. So when you're submitting these ones, you're going to do a checklist, which I'll show you where it is in a minute. We're going to have a cover sheet, site plan, floor plan, full dimensions, elevations, full annotation, section, wall details, and schedules. Part of that full set is that it complies with the NCC and the Australian standard, and these are those other things that I went through about putting on. I didn't mention the termite protection, so you'll show that and put a note on your drawing. So that's a good little idea of what you might do. And then where do I get all the details about this stuff? That's where I've put that separate checklist in. There's one here that you can do just as you're about to, when you think, have I finished yet? If you go through this checklist, tells you everything. Ridge cap hidden. Have I got my roof pitch and materials indicated on the elevation? Yes. So if you go through and sort of read these things, if you go, oh, I'm just about to put false, you'll go, no, I'll go and fix that. Okay. Typical checklist in an office is a couple of sheets, a couple of pages with lots of ticks on it. And then in that drawing one area as well, the checklist that's actually underneath the submission area, this one here is the one that, this one here is the one that I'm going to be using to mark your work. So this is what you want to have a look. All of these things here is what I'll be checking for. So you can see downpipes shown correctly and labelled on the plans. Termite management indicated, noted. Lift off hinges or door swing correct. So that's a really comprehensive thing of what I'm actually going to be looking for on your plan in more microscopic detail, I suppose. All right. So
That
just
one, that one's showing as not available on 22.3 later.
this one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that the, oh no, I'm rather the wrong thing.
Which one? Oh, that's your submission. Yeah. So that's 2 points. So that's a checklist I showed you before. Yeah.
So what was the one that you, oh, that's the one you checked against?
Yeah, that's the one I check against. Yeah. So do you get that one showing? Okay, let me have a look. What's happening? Oh, hang on, that's what I want. I'll have to work out how I publish that to you. Missing a tick button.
I used the template that you had on the website. My elevations don't match the actual orientation with
North,
the
south,
elevation
or
labels. Yeah.
okay.
So is that moving the elevation tags on the floor?
Just changing the labels.
So just write over the labels.
Yeah, but in the let me have a look. In the actual elevation here, see that view name? Yeah, you should be able to just change it there. So you could make this one elevation A, B, C, D if you want, rather than north, south, east, and west, because it's a transportable. Yeah.
Because the orientation's a bit off, so.
And with the transportables, they're going to place them on site, so they probably don't know exactly where north, south is. So you could make them A, B, C, D if you want.
Okay. And then the other question was, I drew in the finished floor level instead of floor plan, and it's not. So I just renamed the original floor plan as floor one, and then I changed the finished floor level to floor plan, and so that sheet was automatically populated.
Floor plan. So what's on that one?
So now I just dragged finished floor level on. Is that going to mark anything? Oh.
No, it'll just be the title on. Just open that one.
Yeah, I just changed the. That's why I renamed.
Oh yeah, that's fine.
Is that alright?
Yeah, perfect.
I just deleted the other one off and renamed the FFL.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah. So I reckon if just it'll be the last thing I say on the recording, that is, you're in the room, you've stuck with me all day. But just so you know, the drawings that you've got that you've already submitted, I would just start detailing those ones up, like I said. So you start with your site plan, put a bit more detail on that, move on to your floor plan, start getting all your dimensions on, your kitchen, all that sort of stuff done. Go on to your elevation, more annotation. Next, if we do all that today, we're up to date. Because next week in the morning, we do the section. We'll put our sections in and start doing the sections, and then a detail. That's all we'll do next week, and then we'll introduce the next project. So I reckon you'll be fine. You don't have to get to your section or detailing today. Just get those other ones right.